This week, I sit down with Dr. Sarah Charbonneau as we talk about her service as a bomb technician, what led her to go on to earn her PhD in forensic science, and then her newfound passion to help bomb technicians with traumatic brain injury. I'm your host, Jay Hinsey, and this is Under the Crab. Sarah, it's good to meet you. I don't know, have we ever met before?
No, not in person. I remember when you were put in place over HDS, but we've never met that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's very good meeting you finally.
Yeah, great meeting you. Yeah, and thank you for jumping on the channel with me. And just before we start, I wanted to let the audience know about your career, your bios, just so they know who you are. But it's Sarah Charbonneau. Did I say that right?
Charbonneau.
Charbonneau.
Yep,
Okay, great.
very close.
So you were a bomb technician? Yes, close. I worked on that for a little bit when you sent it to me, and I still messed it up.
No, it's perfectly fine.
But you were a bomb technician and arson explosive detective for over 10 years in Florida.
Yes.
And you continued to pursue your passion in the field of educating the next generation of students as you're a adjunct professor at St. Leo University.
Hmm.
And you hold a doctoral degree in forensic science from Oklahoma State University with a concentration in explosive and destructive devices. You worked multiple explosive investigations throughout your career, and your master's and doctor studies include cumulative effects on SWAT personnel and explosive breachers when exposed to repetitive overpressure, and overpressure exposure to public safety bomb technicians, which I'm very interested in.
Yes.
You have a vision to continue to make an impact in the study of neurocognitive risks, which is traumatic brain injuries,
Hmm.
and that is dealing with public safety bomb tech. So that's who you are, and I saw your story on LinkedIn, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know a lot of bomb techs that went on to get their PhD. I don't think there's a lot, is there?
Not that I'm aware of. There's a few, that I have met over the course of my schooling that have been bomb techs and may have a PhD or a doctorate, but not a lot. Not a lot.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work to go on and get your
It,
master's and doctor.
I will not lie, it was definitely a lot of work, a lot of late nights, a lot of weekends. So, yes, it was a lot of work.
Well, I just thought that was a fascinating story, and I want to talk to you about today. But let's go ahead and start about your where you grew up and what that looked like growing up with your family.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you having me, on the podcast, Jay. I have a passion for this industry, and hopefully this kinda gets the word out on what I'm trying to focus on. But a little bit about myself is I'm the oldest of 3 girls, born and raised in Tampa. Both my parents were raised here in the Tampa area. My, father, Vietnam veteran, he was in the Army, musician, he was an athlete, microbiologist, hard worker. Mother was a very hard worker. And they mainly just instilled the importance of working hard to accomplish goals. So,
Yeah, sounds
that's
like
pretty
it.
much, worked on building character, good morals, good integrity, strong integrity, and just if you set your mind to something, you gotta work for it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
and that's pretty much, how I was raised. I was an athlete myself, played tennis, went to high school here locally in Tampa. When I turned 18, moved out, just worked jobs, went to school, and tried finding my way, in the world. So so that's kinda how I started out here locally. So
Okay. Do you feel like sports was a big motivator for you and what you ended up doing?
it was a motivator, but I think what it did more is it taught me discipline. You have to train, you have to work hard, you have to prepare for, games, matches. For me, it was tennis. I played on scholarship, so it's preparing, it's training. So, and that's, carried along with me throughout my life into my career, into becoming a bomb tech. training, for HDS, preparing,
All right.
physically.
Right.
So it definitely has a lot to do with it.
Do you still play tennis?
I have not played in a long time. No, it's been a long time. I tried getting my daughters into it and it didn't work out. So,
I grew up in high school, that was a big thing.
mhm,
Andre Agassi and
yeah.
all the big greats. I loved watching them, so tennis was always fun to play. I never got that great at it.
Yeah. It's a challenging sport. It takes a lot of focus, but it was fun.
Yeah. Now you said you had a full scholarship through tennis?
Yes, at the community college level, I played on scholarship and it was only, for 2 years. So after that, I kind of moved on and, went to another community college and just kind of, moved around, ended up in Fort Lauderdale for a couple years. So,
Okay.
yep.
And what kind of gave you the idea of wanting to get in law enforcement? Like, how did that happen for you?
So at the age of 22, so I kind of did schooling down here in the Tampa area. My ex-husband, we were not married at the time, we moved down to Fort Lauderdale and I transferred to FAU in Broward Community. One day I'm sitting out there on the campus of Broward Community College and I see the police academy training. I'm like, I wonder what that is. That looks pretty cool. They're out
At the
running, doing
They're
all,
out there just running around?
yeah, they were doing some kind of drills outside of the campus. So I'm like, that's kinda cool. So, I was like it kinda put a seed into my head like that, I could see myself doing that. But I also grew up, watching different shows and, Chips and Miami Vice and Wonder Woman and all that stuff. So that I was always interested in the investigative, the cool police stuff, the shows and, so I think that kinda also set a stage for me growing up. But that was my first introduction at a young age to law enforcement, watching, the cadets down at Broward Community. Life took over, ended up getting married, had my daughters, so that got put on hold for a little bit, focused
Sure.
on my family.
That's a great thing, though, we got kids.
Yes, yes, so I my role at that point, which I really wanted to give my daughters is I wanted to be there, take care of them, raise them, and once, they got to a point where they could be in school, kindergarten or pre-K, then I went back to school, and that's when I got into put myself through the police academy.
My gosh.
So,
Wow,
yeah,
that's so later
I
on
was
then.
it was definitely later on. I think I was 35, 34, 35
Wow.
when I started back and got focused
Was
back
that
into
difficult
school
to
and not
do after all the years of being away from school, and
Yep,
were
it
you
was def
maintaining physical fitness and all that
Oh,
through all
yeah.
that?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, I've always worked out and trained and, you know, been physically fit, so
okay.
never lost that. That's
Well,
ingrained.
that's probably what got you through all that time away, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Well, so after seeing these cadets on the academy, um, and sparking your interest, you're waiting years later before did you go back to the same school to go through the, police academy?
No, we ended up moving back up to Tampa in the early '20s, I think it was around, 2002,
Okay,
and came back up, went to HCC, applied to the police academy there. I had also finished my 2-year degree through HCC, so I was very familiar with the school. Did the,
okay,
police academy through the community college and graduated, and then, shortly thereafter got hired by the state.
okay. And that's like was Florida have just like a state police or state investigators or something? Is that how that works?
You mean the state of Florida where I got hired?
Yeah,
Yes, so it falls under the CFO for the state of Florida, which this can be very confusing for some people, but it falls under the Department of Financial Services. And they have multiple bureaus, which they've got law enforcement arms, and then they have other arms that are not law enforcement. They may just be on the work on the civilian side. So I got
okay.
hired within Department of Financial Services on the law enforcement side.
And so once how long was the training for that? Was that like a standard academy type of
It was
length?
normal police academy, if I remember. I think it's around 720 hours.
Okay,
Can't remember. exactly, but I think I believe I got into that, it was late 2013,
Okay.
when I got into the police academy and then graduated a few months later.
And so with that academy, you do you go right out into field training? Are you sworn and go through that whole process, or
So, no.
do you have to go find a job with the state?
Yes, you have to go find a job. So, the police academy is the same police academy that the city and county cadets would go through, so it's it encompassed the whole area. When I graduated the police academy, I was not hired yet with the state. So yes, I did have to go out and look, and apply to different agencies. The state
Okay.
ended up picking me up. So with young girls, that was probably the most ideal opportunity for me at that time. So that's where I went and hung my hat every day.
Well, that's great. I mean, I went to community college and swore I wasn't gonna go further than that, and my dad convinced me, "Hey, you better just go get your degree because you never know." And I'm glad I did, otherwise I would have never gotten in the FBI. That's great. I think that's a good move for most people.
Yes.
I was never interested in going beyond that to get a master's or PhD. Uh, I'm glad I went to school as well. What was the challenge after all those years, after having children and moving and doing all these things? What was the challenge for you going back to the police academy? Was there anything major that was difficult,
Well,
or were you used to
personally,
sports and that kinda helped you?
well, yes, the sports helped. I mean, obviously, being athletic, I've always stayed in shape, so that really helped me getting through the academy. I would probably have to say the one challenge I would never wish that anyone had to go through is going through a divorce while you're in the police academy.
Sure.
So that was
Yeah,
the biggest challenge that I went through during those several months of the police academy. But physically, I was prepared. It's just, you have to have that mental focus when you're in the academy because you're constantly testing, you're constantly doing scenarios and just information retention. So that was the biggest challenge at that point in my life.
sure.
Having young daughters, I wanted to obviously set a good example, so and looking back, they have confirmed that it was a very good example, that I set for them. So it was
Do they
good.
remember that time?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they do, they do. They were little, but I think they were, like, 6 and 7, like,
Okay.
5 and a half and 7, somewhere around there.
Wow, okay.
They were
I bet
young.
that were they pretty impressed with what you were doing?
They were. I don't think they fully understood it at that age, but now looking back, I
Sure.
think I've had some kind of an influence on them and their decisions and their career paths now, so,
That's awesome.
yeah.
So you'd say one takeaway for the younger generation is, hey, make sure you stay in shape. That's gonna help you go a long ways.
Stay in shape, stay diligent, and if you have dreams and goals, they're absolutely attainable. Just you have to work hard.
So during that time, I'm imagine like anyone else, you had to go out and do field training. You had to go through a process to learn how to be a police officer. Is that correct? You go through a certain
Correct. We
process,
had the normal
field training?
Yes, we had the normal field training process, 4 phases. So, there was phase 1 and phase 4 with the same FTO, phase 2 and 3, it's the same normal process, but where it was different for me is I was not on the road. I was not, road patrol, working the streets. I was more doing investigations, initially starting out with financial
Okay.
crimes, economic crimes, and I worked large scale financial crimes until I moved over to the arson and explosive squad. So I've worked many different types of cases that have been at the state level, the federal level. So, but yes, the process to get to that point was the normal FTO period
Okay.
that other agencies do employ.
Okay. And so at what point was there an opportunity that came up for you to become a bomb technician?
Yes, yes, and I'll never forget the moment that that opportunity presented itself. I was sitting at my desk in the Tampa field office one day and honestly contemplating if I wanted to stay with the state or if I needed to go, find another agency. I was kind of at this crossroads, and I'm sitting
Were you
there, and
looking
all
at
of a
the
sudden an
FBI at the
email.
time?
What was that?
Were you looking at the FBI at all?
I was looking at other state agencies and my mind was going, but I'm sitting there at my computer and an email pops up and I look at it and it says bomb squad tryouts, I believe is what the header of the email was. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I've never seen this opportunity before with the state. So I continued reading and it had, the whole breakdown of the responsibilities of being a bomb tech. If you're interested, you need to reply so that we can, make sure you're qualified to be able to even try out. So I sat there and read it and read it and read it again. And I'm like, huh, is this a sign that I'm supposed to stay? What is this? So I responded to the email and I said, I'm very interested. I would love to learn more about it. And kind of left it at that. So a few minutes later, I get another email says, okay, you need to send these documents, you need to have all this stuff together. Here's, what is going to be required to try out. You need to study this material. And this is a state requirement to just try out for the bomb squad. So I call my husband now. We were not married at that point, but called and I said, hey, this came up on my computer.
That's
I've
a
never
big
seen
deal.
it before.
That's a big move.
Yeah, I'm like, "I don't know what sign this is." I said, "But this is exactly what I need. Like, this is
Wow, okay.
what I would love to do." So he's like,
And you knew nothing
"Are you
about
sure?"
bomb technician work
"No.
prior to that?
Nope. Nope."
Interesting.
So, yes, it still baffles me as to how it all unfolded back then, but so he's a very supportive husband, so he's like, "If that's what you wanna do, I support you." So I'm like, perfect. So it's kind of history. I went through the whole process. He put me in contact with the Tampa Bomb Squad, and he's like, she's looking at doing this. Can you have her come out and just talk to her so she knows exactly what she's getting into? So I went out there and they put me through about a 30-40 minute little test in the suit, doing different things, And afterwards, they were like, how'd you like it? I'm like, this is amazing. I
You're
love it.
hooked.
Yep. So, it kinda from there, I just prepared for the bomb squad assessment for the state physically, studying materials, studying statutes, and all the stuff that I needed to know for the state test. And, get up to Tallahassee, it was a 2.5 day process, and, did the written test, the physical test, a PAT and stuff like that, and then bomb suit test was the last day, and it was 7 different scenarios, and did them all back to back, no break. It was for time and, um, accurate, performing the skills accurately. So, there was 5 other guys that tested with me, and I ended up scoring the highest, with
Yeah,
the best time and the most accurate on handling the scenarios. So, I ended up passing and getting taken onto the team, and then now the rest is history. It's like that was an amazing experience.
that's a great story.
Yes.
So, once you started that process, after that, was it like, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do the rest of my career here?" Was that you were sold for
Yes, yes, I
okay.
absolutely fell in love with it, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
And how long once you got on the squad there, how long did it take for you to end up going to HDS?
I believe at that time, it was about a year, year and a half wait
Okay,
before I could get in from the time putting the application in and getting there. So I wanna say it was between a year, year and a half that it took for
okay.
me to actually get to school.
And for a lot of our listeners, HDS is the Hazardous Devices School. There's only one in the country, and the FBI is responsible for that. And the waiting period takes a while. There's a lot of squads in the country, and everybody feeds through that school to get certified. So that sounds about right with time that you had to wait.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges, or did you even have any challenges when you got there? Was it a good experience at the schoolhouse?
It was a good experience. I attended class started in February of 2020 and graduated in mid-March of 2020. It was a
That's a
good
good time to come
experience.
to Huntsville.
Yes. Though a Florida girl being in the cold weather, those were my challenges,
Yeah, I
is
could
the
see
not
that.
shaking because I was so cold. But no, it was a very good time to be up there. It wasn't in the dead of summer where it was extremely hot, but it was
Yeah, it's
good.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah, but the studying and preparing was definitely something that if I had to, and any new people going to HCS, I've always advised focus and study, prepare. Physically prepare, mentally prepare, get as much exposure with your squad that you can before you go because it will help you, though you're going to learn the ways of properly being a bomb tech, but just prepare as much as you can.
Yeah. When I was responsible for the school, I'd always tell the students, "Hey, your foundation of safety is you're gonna only get it in these 6 weeks that you're here. And so you need to learn all you can. So before you get here, you gotta be in shape, you gotta be studying up, you gotta do all these things so you're not overwhelmed when you get to school. We want you to
Yes.
pass." And so would you say, looking at our community, and we've tried to really push physical fitness into our community again, would you say that would be a pretty big factor in your success?
I would say yes. And when looking at your classes that attend HDS, you may have, a ratio that is more male, less female. You may have more females than normal, So for me, the physical aspect, I wanted to make sure I was going to perform and have no issue doing any task while wearing the bomb suit through the 2 weeks of scenarios. I never had any issues, and I attribute that to my preparation physically and mentally. So I knew it was something that I had a passion for. So the mental side and preparing for the testing and the coursework was not too difficult. But you have to study. You do have to study. So
And there's the stress of potentially failing and getting sent
yes,
home, right?
yes.
So you get through HGS and then you go back, and are you on a full-time squad, or does it vary depending on where you're at in the state?
So, so at that time, it was not a full time squad yet. It was a secondary responsibility. My primary responsibility was working arsons and explosions, responding to all fatalities that were arson related or just by fire, by accident. So that was my primary responsibility. The secondary was being a bomb tech. It wasn't until probably 3 or 4 years ago that the squad started going to full-time status. So for the last 2.5 years, I'd say I was a full-time tech for the state. I would respond to explosions. If the fire squad got a post-blast scene or explosion, the bomb techs obviously would go to all of those as well.
And, I mean, I think everybody would agree being full-time is way better than being part-time, right?
Absolutely. There's so
Just for
many different
experience sake?
Exactly, and there's so many different facets of being a bomb tech. It's not just being able to put the suit on and walk in a suit. It's the explosive side, knowing your homemade explosives, your precursors, knowing how to run the robot effectively, knowing how to effectively take x-rays and interpret x-rays. Then there's the physical side, which is wearing the suit, which could go from 30 minutes to maybe you're in it for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, taking breaks in between or switching off with someone else. So there's so many different areas of being a bomb tech that it almost necessitates having to be full time. And I know how hard it is to be a bomb tech part time. At the same time that I was doing arson and explosive investigations, I was also a drone pilot, so I had tertiary duties. So, it becomes a challenge if you're not full time, if you're not dedicated to that craft. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where we're seeing, a lot of squads, most squads are part-time, and they have other duties. They have other multiple duties.
yep,
And so they're torn. They have to still find the training because it's a perishable skill. And, that's difficult to get an agency who maybe is shorthanded nowadays to have a full-time squad. So yeah, that's difficult.
yes.
What were some of your favorite things to do as a bomb tech?
Well, it's kinda hard because I liked all of it. I really liked the X-ray interpretation. I was actually really good at that, so I did like that. I would actually help the squad or other regional teammates with X-ray interpretation. Anything that I was felt that I was like personally, I felt that I was lacking in, I would work more in to help educate myself more. But I don't know. I don't know if I really have a favorite thing. I just loved doing the job. I loved every facet of it. So, there were times when, I entered Top Bomb Tech Challenge because I wanted to see where I was as a bomb tech
Yeah.
because, I'm competing against myself. Like, I wanna know where I'm at. So and that, really showed me, "Okay, Sarah, you need to work in this area. You need to bring up your skill here or bring it up here." So I just loved all of it. And like you said, there's so many different areas of being a bomb tech that a lot of people have a hard time keeping up the proficiency in everything.
Well, and it's not only is it a team sport, but it's also a single person sport because
Mhm.
once you get in the suit and go down range, like you're making those decisions on your own,
Yes,
and you have to be able to change based on the threat assessment. You have to be able to adjust that, and some people they can't do that very well.
that's true. That's true.
So you've been a tech for a while, and did you end up running the squad? Were you responsible for the squad?
So the state squad is broken into 4 different regions, I guess you could say, because we covered the state. So you had your Pensacola group, Tallahassee, South Central Florida, which was my team, and then, Fort Myers, the southern part of the state. So I was the lead bomb tech for the South Central region. So I ran my squad, and we would work a lot with our regional partners, Tampa, Hillsborough, Citrus, and do a lot of training. And they would help with with call out if I needed, if I was short, they would, I could reach out to anyone.
Any significant events you can talk about that you weren't sure of or like was dangerous or you felt like, "Wow, this is a real deal."
So yes, there's one that comes to mind, but I don't know if it's too recent to talk about it.
Okay,
But
well, if you can't, don't worry about it.
yeah, it would be a perfect one to talk about, but I think it's still ongoing with the state,
Okay.
but it did involve IIDs, IEDs, and an active shooter. So, it was a very good case, but I won't go into more detail.
So, IIDs, improvised incendiary devices, correct, for our audience? And then improvised explosive device. Yeah, so you know, a lot of our audience may not know, or they may if they follow the news. Like that type of response has really changed for us as bomb technicians. Would
Mhm.
you agree?
Yes, it has.
Responding to these active shooter events, and that's kind of where, the crisis response course came about, to teach technicians on how to respond to these events quickly with the equipment that they have on them. They're not at their trucks, and they have to quickly make decisions.
Yes.
And so I understand not being able to talk about it, but that's gonna continue on as we go here. I don't think that's ever gonna go away. I think we're gonna continue to see more and more of that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that seems like the direction it's going, and, you know it's one thing I'm gonna miss is being able to go to those calls and work with everyone and do my job as a bomb tech. So
That's right. Well, I miss it. I don't miss the admin part of it, and I don't miss all the other nonsense, but I do miss going on calls with my brothers and sisters and working through the
yes.
problem. I do miss that for sure. So, okay, you've been a tech for a while, and then at what point did you decide, "Hey, I'm gonna go subject myself to getting my PhD," or was it a progression of
It actually
studies that
was
you
a
wanted to do?
Yeah, it was actually a progression. It really started before I got onto the state bomb squad. So I had already been working on my bachelor's, finished that. That's when I tried out for the bomb squad right after I finished my bachelor's. And then I'm like, I went to HDS, graduated HDS, came home. The senior person on our team notified us that he was retiring. So he was going to be gone in 2 weeks.
Wow.
The other person Yeah, so the other person on the team
Opportunities.
yeah, I mean, yes, opportunities, but then it was the fear of who's gonna teach? Who's gonna teach me how to be a mom tech? So, other than the skills that
Right.
I learned at HDS. But the other person on the team graduated 6 months before I did. So, there was a lack of experience there.
Yeah, brand new people.
Yeah, so I really depended on my regional partners, and at that point, I had attended a knife course, and at the knife course is where I was introduced to some of the FBI instructors. Some of them were also, OSU instructors or taught at one point at OSU, and that's where on breaks, I would introduce myself and talk to them because I was trying to find an avenue that would benefit the field of work that I was in. And when they were talking about the school and, and we were just going through the course, the knife course and all the explosives and the different things they were showing us, that really piqued my interest to pursue. So I ended up doing the master's program with OSU, and it's a master's in forensic science with a concentration in the explosives.
What was that like having to bring that burden onto you?
It was a lot of work. I think I slept very little. So, working full time, being on the bomb squad, just being a brand new baby tech, trying to learn as much as I could, but by taking those courses, I didn't look at it as extra work. I looked at it as a means for me to educate myself on top of doing field work, working call out, going to regional training, and doing scenarios with other team members. So, yes, it was a huge amount of work and pressure that I put on myself, and it took away a lot of time for my family, but they understood my passion. So
Sure.
they were very supportive.
Yeah.
So finished the master's, and I'm like, "Well, I'm here. Let me just
What's
keep
next?
going. Let me get it done."
My gosh.
So I did, I was so immersed in it. I'm like, "You know what? It's only 30 more credit hours. Let me just keep going. I'll finish it. And what knowledge I can gain, I can bring back to everyone. And I can explain something better. I can teach something better or whatever it may be." And it was also a means to, if there's an end to being a bomb tech, then I can go on and teach anything in the forensic science field or in explosives. Plus I have all the field work and the call outs, hundreds of call outs, to pull experience from.
Yeah. During that time, did you get on the ATF task force? I
I
think I read.
did.
So it was during all that, training and going to school?
Yes. It wasn't my first choice to join because I knew how busy I was. I did not want to disappoint ATF by being so busy with work and school that I couldn't dedicate what I needed to, but they were very interested in having me, so I agreed and was happy to do it. Happy to be on it, loved it, got a lot of good experience and
Yeah.
training, from being a
But
part
I
of
think
it.
that's one thing I've learned about the ATF. They've always been supportive of getting more knowledge and training and
They're amazing.
with their different programs that they offer for state and locals and their agents. So, yeah, that I'm glad that worked out for you.
Mhm.
Do you feel that that helped you in your studies and understanding working on your dissertation and all the things that you had to do to get your PhD? Did that help?
It did, it exposed me to a lot of the instructors, when I would go to training, if ATF would offer something, that I could go to. It allowed me to go and have open conversations about different things, and it really did help build on the education side. So, and, also too, I was actively a, assistant instructor. So, like, at AEDT, I would go back and
Yes.
assist, and I
Great
did that.
course.
Yep, I did. Yes, very good course, and every bomb tech should go to that,
Yes.
but I would go back as an assistant instructor and help with the courses, and I think I learned even more doing that, and actually teaching, because it really, and I got to be exposed to so many different things and educate too.
Well, I was a state and local, police officer, but I was a bomb tech as well in Arizona, and that was one of my first courses in 2002. I went to AEDT,
Mhm.
and, it was best one of the best courses, and I still remember a lot of techniques I learned from that
Yeah.
course, and I applied those throughout my whole, local career and bureau career, so it was a great class, and I know it's gotten better too over the years.
Yep.
So Tell us about the more the philosophy or the more specialized approach on TBI. Like what tell us how all that came about for you and what that is. A lot of listeners may not know. They might have heard it on the news or they're somewhat familiar with it, but tell our listeners about that injury and how you got involved in that.
So, with the whole direction of TBI, it didn't really start with traumatic brain injury initially. I was searching for a topic for my master's. I'm a bomb, I'm trying, looking at my whole scenario and looking at me. I'm a bomb tech. I go to call outs. I'm trying to get educated on this. I go to a lot of, I have an explosive breacher, and so I see what bomb techs are exposed to. I've worked with a lot of the military EOD, whether through training, on call outs, or any other events like that. And there's
So the
one
explosive
big
breacher real quick, that's you're supporting SWAT missions, right? You're making a way for SWAT teams to get
yes,
into breach points, correct?
absolutely. Yes. So, working through the masters, I'm like, what do I see the most? What am I most exposed to, or what are my teammates most exposed to? And overpressure just kept coming into my mind. You know, we feel overpressure when we do disposals. There's overpressure when you do explosive breaching. So there's different instances where we're exposed to the overpressure. So I kind of focused my master's thesis on looking at the overpressure exposure to SWAT personnel when they're doing an exterior breach of a building. So that kind of started my path. And like I said, it wasn't really focusing on TBI initially. It was just how much overpressure are we getting? So in a person, 1 through 9, I use Tampa PD as my example of a SWAT team, talked to the SWAT team, put blast dosimeters, made up mock, SWAT personnel, put blast dosimeters on each of my made up built, personnel and just measured. I think we did 21 shots. I had Tampa PD bomb squad help me, get this whole day of testing done and just looked at the overpressure that was coming off of the hockey puck and how it was hitting the SWAT team, even with a bomb blanket up front,
Can
and
you
it's
for the layman, can you tell us what overpressure is? A lot of people may not know.
so overpressure is gonna be the blast wave that when you have an explosion go off, you may not see a blast wave, but there's gonna be a wave of pressure that's gonna come off of an explosive or an explosion that is going to hit anything that's in its path. It's going to find any little cavity space that it can go into and affect the body, affect a building, affect anything that's in its path. So it's probably the a simple way to explain the overpressure.
Yeah, so some of these chargers, these breaching chargers, they're designed to move a certain way on a door, and that's away from SWAT, but those overpressures are 360 degrees, right? They're
Yes.
coming off. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, so you've got that blast pressure coming off, like you said, 360 degrees. It's going up, it's going down, it's going every side, every direction it can go. It's gonna find its path of least resistance. So that's kind of the study that I was doing, and we were just recording it. I just did multiple recordings of different shots and just seeing how it's wrapping around, coming off the building, and how it's affecting the SWAT personnel and who's getting affected the most. Is it 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9? So, obviously, 1, 2, and 3, 1 was a little bit less, but it's coming back and hitting, person 2, 3, 4. It's wrapping off the eaves, rolling around.
So why is one protected more? Is because they had a shield or they were behind something?
What my conclusion is the one in my example, they're holding the blast shield.
Okay.
So, that shield is reflecting it up and around number 1, coming back and affecting 2 and 3 more. And then the eaves, now you've got 4, 5, 6, 7. They're not directly behind the shield, so it's coming off the wall and wrapping around as well. So it was just my way of hopefully producing a good paper, a thesis that just look more specifically at it, and I know there's a lot of studies that have looked at that and a lot of bomb techs and educated people that have really studied this. It was just something that interested me, and I was interested in, looking at it further.
And so and that was for your master's, correct? And then so what once you decided, "I'm gonna move forward on my PhD, my doctorate," what was that what was the influence on that? What was your specialized training or study to work on that, your thesis, I guess?
So what I've usually heard is if you can take your thesis from your master's and build on it, that's a good way to develop your dissertation. So I took what I did in my thesis and tried to hone in and get more specific. So with that, it brought me to looking at how repetitive overpressure is affecting bomb techs. Because I kind of focused the first one on SWAT personnel, because I was just thinking explosive breaching. Though we do explosive breaching, but as bomb techs, we do a lot more. So disposals, all kinds of stuff that we do where we may be exposed to overpressure. So it gave me a focus and honed me in on focusing specifically on the overpressure that bomb techs are feeling, but also too in the course of my history and training, and communicating with EOD personnel, I started just gently asking questions and inquiring, trying to get my topic more specific, and was learning that there's no baseline testing available for bomb techs. You have when I refer to baseline testing, I'm referring to a physical test that's going to do brain scans and give you a baseline as a new bomb tech coming in, going to HDS. You're required to do physical tests and you have to pass physical standards, but there's no test to employ or check the brain and cognitive ability. And the military has employed this for a long time, and they do baseline testing. Now, I have met EOD techs that said they were in the military way before baseline testing was done, and so it won't work now because they've been exposed to
I
too
don't
many
know.
overpressures
Yeah.
at this point. So this is kind of where I'm starting to really narrow down my topic. So doing the baseline testing for bomb technicians and looking at overpressure exposure and its relation to TBI is something that I've really kind of made my mission. And it's something there's still many years that this could go on because it's not something that is going to happen overnight because I've got
Right,
to get the buy in from agencies, techs, medical field.
right. Yeah, the techs are gonna want that, right? They're gonna want to want that, you can't make them do it.
Exactly.
What can you describe for the audience what is traumatic brain injury? Like, what does that look like? What does that do to the brain?
So, TBI, traumatic brain injury, is referred to as the signature injury, and it results in concussive injuries, which that is meaning that you've got military techs and public safety techs that are exposed to high level and low level blast in the form of overpressure. So, the subconcussive trauma and these injuries are affecting the head, they affect the body, and like I said before, they will find every cavity that they can go into and affect organs and, within the brain, and it just it's not an immediate injury that you're gonna recognize, but it's gonna affect a person over time. I'm trying to break this down so it's, like, relatable to someone that doesn't have any knowledge on this. It can cause neurological issues within the brain that we may not readily recognize as bomb techs or someone that is affected by TBI. So It's just something that I'm trying to focus on and look at the factors that may initially start affecting bomb techs and give them avenues to start tracking and be educated and have the knowledge to protect themselves and their longevity.
So, when people hear this, they might be thinking, well, is this PTSD? So, TBI is the actual damaging of brain tissue, where PTSD is more of a psychological damage or
Correct.
issue that people would have to deal with. Is that okay?
Yes.
Do they, is there a contributing factor for both? If I were to get a TBI, could that contribute to me having PTSD?
It could contribute to it if you, let's say, if you're having the symptoms of, a TBI, which is trouble with, sleep, brain injuries will cause different things, sleep disturbances, sleep apnea, chronic pain, headache, substance abuse, which can all lead to a PTSD. It can also affect rumination, thoughts in someone's head. So, unfortunately, symptoms of TBI can maybe morph into a PTSD diagnosis, and just it causes some major cognitive impairments and ability to concentrate that maybe some bomb techs may not recognize immediately as being caused by overpressure exposure. And like I said, overpressure exposure can come in forms of low level, multiple low level, or it could be one instance of a high level overpressure exposure. So I know the military personnel, they probably see a lot more of the high level, whether it's an IED or, something like that. But, so it's just trying to understand. But yes, I do feel that the TBI can at times show signs of PTSD or kind of be interrelated to a
A
sense.
double whammy.
I know, unfortunately.
So these TBIs could happen through acute measures or chronic, like you said, it could
Hmm.
happen over a period of years as
Hmm.
technicians? Okay.
Yes,
So it could happen easily, like, I could be around a large explosive that went off, and I could get a traumatic brain injury, just like we're seeing with our service members. So it could happen easily, right? It could just be, you respond on an event and the device goes off, and you're closer than you should be.
it could. It could. If you happen to be, like you said, closer than you should be to something that's going off, or maybe you're approaching something and it goes off, or if there's a disposal that you're doing and the limits are a little bit higher than what they should be, or things, it really could go in different ways. You never know how that exposure where it may come from at the moment. Obviously, PPE or protective gear is the most important thing I can see that we have access to help prevent these incidences and occurring. So, unfortunately, I think as mom techs, you are exposed and you're, at risk to having the overpressure effects build, cumulative over your career.
So would wearing a helmet, PPE, helmet, bomb suit, would those protect us from TBIs?
I don't know if I would say they would 100% protect you. I don't know what the actual percentage would be, but by wearing the bomb suit, the helmet, the ear protection, I think they're all very imperative and important to wear. Having the right kind of ear protection that's going to be secure to your head and fill any gaps or space where overpressure could find a way through. So, and I've always been a huge proponent and always very big on wanting to participate in any kind of research and development that goes into that type of PPE for bomb techs because it definitely will cut down the level of risk that a bomb tech would receive from any overpressure.
So currently there's no cure or remedy for this kind of injury?
Not that I am aware of. Through all the research that I've done, I haven't come across, and it could be out there, I have not come across a cure. My initial response would be to always make sure that PPE is being employed and that it's always being worn when the situation necessitates that you are to wear PPE and your tac vest, your bomb suit, your helmet, whatever it may be. Complacency is not good in the event that you choose not to wear it. So I just yeah, but I going back to your question, I have not seen a cure for it per se,
Okay.
but
And so, I mean, I know there's been a lot of studies, but do we know the future problems of TBI? Like, does it lead to dementia? Does it lead to all sorts of other brain issues and cognitive issues that it could affect the body as well? Do we know any studies on that?
so, yes, and there's a lot of future studies out there, and there's additional studies that I would like to do. The different, means to do this, really falls down to the ability to fund, the studies, having the avenues to support, the studies, can be challenging, but there's definitely the ability to do further research and development of equipment and, to help protect the bomb techs.
Is there any knowledge or studies on, after a TBI, can what we eat, can exercise, can, rest, can those do we know if those help in any way?
Well, with regards to eating, I think following, as they always say, eating, a healthy diet, maintaining, your health and physical well-being and ability, to keep up with doing the job is going to help your longevity within the career. So I don't know if there's an exact diet to, you know, help prolong or prevent anything from happening with regards to TBI. But my suggestion and my advice would be to maintain a healthy diet, physical well-being, take the measures to protect yourself, just for future longevity.
I guess my other question would be, if we know we've experienced a TBI, let's say we were involved in some type of explosive accident, are we gonna just assume that that brain injury is gonna get worse over time as we age?
There are different, I don't know exactly for sure if it will get worse if there's no additional exposures. I don't
Right.
know if that progression will continue to develop and get worse. I know there's probably studies out there. I haven't gone extremely deep into it, only focusing on the baseline testing and with the effects of overpressure, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, does TBIs affect our sleep? Like, do SWAT guys and would a TBI affect their sleep as well? And the reason why I ask, I read a
Absolutely.
study the other day that the study said that, a lot of problems that law enforcement are experiencing have to do with fatigue and sleep fatigue. So much so that if they go I think it was if they go 24 hours without sleeping, it's comparative to being a .10 PAC, which I found unbelievable, but I can see where that could be. Like, I used to work shift work, so I understand that. Do you does TBI and that type of brain injury, would that cause sleep problems as well?
Absolutely. I have also read some similar articles where I have seen it state that it can create sleep apnea and different sleep disturbances or trouble sleeping. I know a lot of people that I've even spoken to have expressed issues with that. And that's where many times they've been like, if you're going to do a study to where if you need people to participate and have, their MRI done or whatever to start getting this study going, they would definitely be interested in or doing cognitive testing because they have told me my sleep is screwed up. I can't sleep, just issues with having consistent sleep. And you're absolutely right because especially when you do shift work, it does affect it affects not only your schedule, especially if you're a midnight shift or whatever, but being up for hours, especially as a bomb tech, you may be on a call for a long time.
So these effects could be significant in your
They could.
career for sure. Yeah. So I know military's done a lot of studies, especially with the last few war theaters we've been in, and there is a concern for techs as we just mentioned. But what's what's on the docket for you? Like, what's your plans for future testing? What would you like to see happen? And is the government fully aware of this? Are state governments fully aware of this? Are they willing to support with dollars, or is this kind of like tucked off to the side and no one's caring about it because they don't know?
Well, I think it is definitely on the radar. I would say based on research that I've looked at, like I mentioned before, military, they're all in, they have the funding, they do the testing, they do baseline testing for EOD techs. My goal is to make the same type of testing available for public safety bomb techs. This will help me to inform of risk as well as preventative measures. This will also give them, bomb techs, the means of understanding their cognitive health and being able to determine what is their longevity within the career. The problem that I foresee is bomb techs love doing their job. They may not want to recognize the risk or the injuries that they may be receiving. So, my goal, this could take another 5 to 7 years to really get something going, but it is my goal to take on this and try and do a study. Almost, it's like my phase 2 of my doctorate, and start the study and get bomb techs vested and seeing the need to do this. So just like the military side, just trying to take what the military is doing and bring it down to the public safety realm within the United States, or where all the bomb squads are, and start employing the same measures to a certain degree if we can, to start helping track this for bomb techs.
So there is some established standards of measuring, and
Yes.
a lot of police officers, and I mean to include myself. Like, I'm not going to submit to some medical thing. I don't know what you're doing. Like, is that you think we're going to have issues with techs not wanting to do that?
Yes, I do. And I've already noticed that from the first survey that I took of bomb commanders. So there's probably a very small percentage, less than 2%, that don't want any testing. And I think those might be the ones that don't want to know. And I get it. Like, I understand it from a bomb tech side. But there are a lot of bomb techs that do see the need. They want this done. They've asked, you've got to do this, you've got to start this. So there's definitely a need, and it can come in the way of cognitive testing, different questionnaires, just testing memory. There's so many different tests that are already out there, um, that they do use on dementia patients, on PTSD patient or people suffering from PTSD. So there's stuff out there, but it's just trying to get the bomb techs to see the need, and if it's for their own education, that they can just take it, and it's, they understand what they're being exposed to, you know. That's all I wanna try and do.
Right. Well, I'm just like you said, we're all afraid of, I've worked this hard. I want to be a bomb tech my whole career, and I don't want anybody to tell me I can't.
Yes,
And forget if I have brain problems, there's nothing I can do about it. So I don't even want to know.
exactly. I've heard it. I've heard it from a lot of people I've talked to.
So would simple testing, pre-testing be like an MRI photo of your brain? Like, would that, and you could compare those in another 10 years? Is that how the military's doing it?
I don't know exactly, I'm not 100% sure how frequently they do the testing. I know they do the initial baseline. I don't recall how often they do the testing for them. For the study, if I could do it, perfect world, I would like to do it once a year. Do a
Wow. Okay.
baseline. I would
Yeah.
like to do a baseline when they do their physical prior to HDS. And that baseline test, I would say, would I would hope that that wouldn't affect their ability to get into HDS, but it would be a good baseline just for an educational purpose. Then if they're on the team, they're doing disposals, they're interacting at different events or, call outs post HDS, then at some point another test, MRI is done. And, just to start seeing, and I think this would have to go on for 5 to 7 years to get a good amount of information, but just to see once a year, are there changes? Now, maybe after the first year, everything is still looks the same, there's no changes, maybe we push it to every 2 years.
It's kinda like a
So
hearing test almost, right?
yes, yes. So I think, there's so many things that I think about with this, and there's so much that can go into it. And, I'd have to have a neurologist to really pick their brain and get their expert advice on, okay, is this possible? Is it a waste of
Right.
time? Is it a waste of money? But that's what I would foresee happening.
Would there be a I mean, because I could see where people who'd wanna be techs, maybe they were in the military prior, and they already have multiple TBIs. What about those
Yes.
circumstances? Would you be able to tell the difference, on their initial screening, and then 5 years later, they could see a change? Is that a simple way to look at it?
I mean, you probably could if you did a scan. And yes, I have talked to people who were military, who were exposed to overpressure blasts, who blacked out, and they know that they have some effects from that. I don't think they'd be a great candidate to participate in the study, but I don't see where you couldn't do a baseline test at that point. And then if there's changes from that point, from that original MRI, and now there's changes that are taking place, it kinda still gives you that baseline. But personally, I would say it would need to be participants that are not prior that have not had prior exposure to blast
Yeah.
for the study, at least.
Yeah, that makes sense, and you might have an easier chance of getting this next generation to be able to willing to participate probably too.
Mhm.
Is there any connection that we know of with TBI, as a contributing factor to suicide?
Well, a lot of the symptoms that we're seeing with TBI, PTSD being one of them. I don't know exactly, and I can't say for sure if there is a connection, but PTSD is listed under some of the effects from TBI. So, there could be some relation, but I can't say for sure exactly if there is. But I I have read a lot of things where they're starting to interrelate the 2.
Yeah.
So
It seems like anything with the brain, you're gonna have multiple because the brain affects everything, right? Like,
right. And that's
you
just like with dementia, it's like, is dementia related to TBI? I don't know for sure. I can't speak to that because I haven't studied that very much, but it's possible, I guess. But so
what, do you know what the medical community is doing about this? Are they involved in these studies? Are they working with the military and the government?
so I have done, within the research that I've done and just looking around at a lot of different things, the medical community, I do know, is addressing TBI through different approaches, whether it's through research, treatment, advancement, different care pathways. So I can see where the medical community is trying to provide avenues. And it's just like, federal and state, they have their different pathways and avenues that they're taking, to make changes or to recognize some of the issues. So I don't feel like any of it's going unnoticed. So,
Right. Well, not I mean, you could get a TBI in an auto accident, right? It doesn't have to be
yes,
necessarily with explosives, right? Okay.
correct. You can get TBI, auto accident. And that would actually have to be part of the questionnaire, the
Yeah.
initial questionnaire by someone that's going to participate. That would be have you been in
Right.
accidents? Have you ever had, a documented concussion? Did you black out? So those are all a questionnaire for something like this would have to encompass focus
Well,
questions like
yeah,
that,
if I was a
because
football
that can
player,
contribute. Exactly.
so it's all fascinating stuff, the brain is, it's amazing. Where do you see what do you see doing in the next 5 to 10 years? What's your goals? What are you working on? I know you're trying to develop this study and get other entities engaged. Hopefully, NABSCAB and IABTI will partake, but what's your goals for the next 5 to 10 years with what you're doing?
Well, my goals would be like you just mentioned, I really would like to get a team together that could help facilitate and push this initiative forward. It's been a passion of mine just because I am a bomb tech. I've been exposed to stuff. I've been exposed to overpressures and disposals and stuff like that. And if I could get a team that could help facilitate building this research study and pushing it forward, that would be a great, accomplishment to do and then give back to the bomb tech community, the private, community. I feel like we're lacking that on the public safety side.
Yeah,
So if and like I said before, this study could take 5 to 7 years. You
right.
know, I do have certain people that I have in mind, but like you said, NABSCAB, IABTI, maybe, any of the bomb suit, companies, MedEng, any of them out there, the tech, vest helmet, you know, producers. So I foresee doing that and pushing that forward, as well as my path with St. Leo and helping educate in the field of forensic science and educate the younger population, introduce them to fields that they may have never thought were possible.
Sure.
So, kind of paralleling both of those and trying to push the second phase of the study forward.
Yeah, so you're new essentially, are you an adjunct professor now? Is that your main focus, plus all the other testing that you wanna do? Is that what you're focusing on now?
Correct. Right now, I'm just doing the adjunct work since I've left the state. Obviously, the bomb tech world was my passion. So, if I can continue that, outside of working with the state and educate the younger generation, that's, what I'm going to do for now. I've got other things in the works, other opportunities that are kind of hanging out there. So, I we'll see where the future takes me. I have no idea. It's exciting though.
So there is life after doing law enforcement and life after being a bomb tech, right?
There is.
You know,
Yes.
because I hear so many guys and gals, they're worried about, well, what am I going to do? And what does this skill apply to after I retire? And so I try to encourage people, hey, find that one thing that you really enjoyed doing and try to incorporate your passion as a bomb tech and do it in afterwards, whether it's instructing and whether it's going on to get a degree in teaching, whether it's, being something to do with leadership. I mean, we're problem solvers. We work through
Exactly.
problems. Is there something that people can do there? I guess my last big question for you is what's what's one piece of life advice that you would have to offer the younger generation of people who want to serve and want to do this job? What's one piece of life advice that has helped you win at life for yourself?
Well, if I could, I'd probably say there's not just one little piece. It's probably a culmination of a bunch of little pieces. So, a big piece of advice that has helped me win is by surrounding myself with like-minded people. I've embraced
Yes.
challenges. I've faced many setbacks with persistence and I've learned from my failures. So, just those things in itself have really helped me be a productive person in my career and in education. I've never dwelled on any problems. I find the solutions. Like you said, we're problem solvers. So if I come up to a challenge, I'll find a solution to work around that and make it a successful outcome. That's probably in a nutshell the simplest thing that I could say. And just the passion for our field is always gonna be there, and I always wanna be a part of it in some capacity.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I like we talked about earlier. miss the job in a way, but I miss the people.
Yes,
And so if I can continue to contribute in some meaningful way, I want to continue to do that as well.
absolutely.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've got a lot going on, but I appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about what you're doing and your background and this whole issue that we're starting to see with traumatic brain injury. And I just wish you the best. Hope our professional organizations, IABTI, and others will embrace what you're trying to educate people on.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me.